Good morning. I want to welcome the public back to the search committee public interview for the chief of police for the Pensacola Police Department, the City of Pensacola. All search committee members are present, as is Mayor Robinson. I'd like to welcome our second candidate of the morning, Assistant Commissioner Booker Hodges of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Assistant Commissioner Hodges, I think I started off last time just simply saying thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our process. Last night was great. We clearly have three great people. So for us today, we're trying to find the right candidate for the City of Pensacola. So we appreciate you engaging. Gary will have questions, and I'll have a chance to meet with you individually afterwards.
Thank you for having me. Seriously, I mean, this has been a great experience, and I'm just thankful for the citizens of Pensacola and all of your involvement. Seriously, I know these processes can be taxing, and I know how important these decisions are for local government. So thank you for that.
Thanks, sir. Okay, so we've got a few questions for you, and then you will, as the mayor indicated, you'll have a meeting with him at the conclusion of the questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, how would you increase employee engagement and officer retention?
So officer retention and employee engagement are, to me, very vital to the success of having a healthy organization. Retention, replacing employees, obviously we know is extremely expensive to do. So how would I increase officer engagement? One, I think I would have a labor committee meeting every other month with the labor committee just to make sure that we were on the same page. Two, I practice, like I said yesterday, procedural justice and voice. I would give officers a voice. So if we have a policy change that's coming up, I would give officers an opportunity to weigh in on that policy change. In addition, I've been very successful at having officers be engaged by actually listening to people's ideas. And I will give the example of the Women's Academy. It wasn't my idea. One of the deputies had brought it to me, and all she needed from me was a stamp of approval, and she got that. And to find some resources to go out and conduct this Women's Academy, which was very successful at bringing in female officers into the sheriff's office. You really actively engage your employees by giving them a voice within your organization and showing them respect. Now, retention is, in combination with that, employees have to feel respected and valued, and they have to have purpose, right? Without purpose, people aren't gonna wanna stay. And I've been successful at that, again, at the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. We were able to get people to come lateral in from other agencies and take a small pay cut. It wasn't send your kid to college money pay cut, but you know, my coffee cup a day type pay cut to come to the sheriff's office because of the purpose that we put out there. And the purpose was honor, truth, respect, and responsibility. And that was everything we did. Honor, truth, respect, responsibility. And people came to that. And then when I got to be chief in Prior Lake, I brought that there. And what the interesting piece about that was, when I first got there, we were hiring. The neighboring agency had 3 applicants, and I got 62 to apply for that. And we were able to get 4 people off of that list. So purpose is really vital to retention, because it's just like community members out there. And I say this about young kids. Whenever someone doesn't have a purpose, their circumstance is going to dictate how they view stuff. And when you look at a lot of things going on in our communities right now, sometimes people don't have that purpose, and they're letting their circumstance dictate how they view the world. So for me, it's about purpose in terms of retention for employees and voice.
Thank you. The second question is, well, let me preface it. We all have biases. How do you confront and work around yours?
So I developed an unconscious bias training program that's used that I go around the country teaching to law enforcement agencies. I'm trying not to get too much in the weeds here because I know we got a limited amount of time, but so basically our unconscious mind makes decisions based on our background and experience, right? So say, for example, I'm a Vikings fan, right? That's my background and experience as being a Vikings fan. And even if I come to Pensacola, I'm still going to be a Vikings fan, right? I don't like the Packers, right? Why don't I like the Packers? Because Brett Favre used to throw 50-yard touchdown bombs and run out the back of the Metrodome, right? But but the good thing about how I address my unconscious bias is really changing my background and experience with those whom I have a bias against. And when I teach this, I have everybody take out a piece of paper and write down, list their friends, right? And if all your friends look like you, I challenge people to go out in the next 6 months and find someone who's different than you and be a friend with. And I mean friend, not like, you know, I know you at work. I'm talking about you actually go to their house. Because when you think about this, and I found this to be, for me personally, how I've got rid of a vast majority of the biases that I've had is really associating with people who, groups that I may have had a bias or an assumption against. And I think as human beings, we all do it. I mean, I think at some point, you know, and I make it comfortable for people to admit that we have biases. It's one thing to know that you have a bias, but the second part and the character part after that is making sure you take steps to address that bias.
But you can have a bias against Packers, but we don't care. The Saints are going to be a different ball.
Yeah, we got the St. Paul Saints, though, baseball team in Minnesota.
Thank you for the answer, Assistant Commissioner. So now I'm going to give you a hypothetical, okay? Assuming you've been selected as the police chief of Pensacola and 1 year has passed, tell us what you've accomplished in terms of community relationships and relationships inside the police department. And more importantly, tell the committee, how did you get there?
Man, that's like a multi-layered question there. So for me, I gauged like at year one, if we haven't increased diversity in terms of racial diversity within the department, I would consider that a failure. And I think for me personally, that is one of the things that I want to accomplish. And how are we going to accomplish? We're going to go out to these neighborhoods and we're going to ask these people to join the police department. You'd be surprised what you get if you actually go out and ask people to join the police department. You know, and I've seen it when people haven't considered law enforcement as a career before. And if they say no, that's fine. We're going to ask again, right? And we're going to go out there and we're going to keep beating those bushes and making sure that we're getting the best people to go. But I think here, there's a segment of the population that we just haven't addressed, and I want to make sure that that we do that. Secondly, in terms of our community relations, obviously coming in from the outside, I have to make sure that I'm out in the community and meeting and knowing people. So if in a year, if I don't have, and I have a draft here for you all, a community safety advisory committee set up to where in the city where, you know, I think it's a public safety advisory committee where citizens are able to advise the police department and the fire department on policies, advise, and have input into what we do. I think if year one, if that hasn't accomplished, I'd view that as a failure. Internally, if I haven't set up a promotional process and a hiring process that's based on shared values with the community after conducting a listening session in the city of Pensacola, I would view that as a failure. And also there are some other aspects that I want to do in terms of putting police officers in some of our housing projects and whatnot, and making sure that we're engaging with those folks. But for me, if those things aren't accomplished, I would view it as a failure. And you know, I think, you know, when you look at the surveys and you see that 52% of the population views that the police treat the black community different, I would like to see that number go down in the next survey. And I don't have a specific percentage, but I would at least like to see that number go down. And also I would like to see if we could ask the why people feel that way also and address that.
Thank you for that answer. So the last question we have for you before you go meet privately with the mayor is, how do you create a culture of accountability?
That's so, again, for me, it's vision, mission, and values. So once we have this listening tour, let me back up. So day one for me, mission, vision, and values is respect, period. That's day one. And once we have the listening tour with the community to figure out what shared values they want us to have, the police department will adopt those in conjunction with the community. And that's how we will hold everyone accountable to those values. And I would just use respect as an example. If our motto or what we believe in is respect, if an officer does not demonstrate respect, he or she will be held accountable. When you have shared values, it's really easy to hold employees accountable. In many respects, police officers are great character, value-centered people. And if we have these values in place and people know what the values are, they know the four corners of the organization, it's a lot easier for people to get on board with that. And it's a lot easier for the public when you're filing a complaint against an officer if we have these shared values, right? Again, respect, right? Which one of these core values of the Pensacola community, because it's not just the police department, did this officer violate in this conduct? Check the respect box. How did they violate respect, right? And then when we go to the officer and the union and have that discussion, that's a lot easier discussion to have when we have that vision, mission, and values there. And it's the accountability, and I've seen it. We did it at the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. You know, you violated such and such policy. You know, that's one way to do it, or the other way is you violated the core values that the people who put us here said that they want. Because again, I say this like a broken record. None of these jobs belong to us. They belong to these people. And we're here for them. And if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be a need for us to be here.
Thank you for that answer. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, and with that having been said, we're going to take a break. And Assistant Commissioner Hodges is going to meet with Mayor Robinson.